Joining us now, as he will on Fridays this season from the Ray Dregs Hockey Podcast, ESPN color analyst Raymond Ferraro. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm got my game of the week, and this week I'm in Florida and to Tampa, who's kind of doing their own bit of stumbling around a little bit, and against a Florida team that will have 20 players dressed tonight, which is always
novel
news for them. Yeah, I mean they're down to nothing here, trying to get a roster together. Talked to Aaron Ekblad today, and so he's getting around okay, but he's going to be a while. And saw Roberto Luongo going for a skate, but he's a forward now. He's not a goalie.
So men's league forward, yeah.
Men's league forward, yeah. He was
like Kirk McLean.
There were no pads around Louis there. There were none.
He's getting ready for the Hall of Fame game, right? Like he's already confirmed that he's playing, but I'm not playing in goal when he and the Twins get inducted there next month. All right, well, let's get on these Vancouver Canucks. What do you make of them, Ray, at 0-3-2?
They've gotten better. They play longer stretches of good hockey. However, the worst line ever is, we got to play a 60-minute game. We'd like to control the game for 60 minutes. I mean, nobody ever controls a game for 60 minutes. The Canucks' problem is they give it away, not all in one spurt of 5 minutes, but with about 5 or 7 minutes of either mistakes or indifferent coverage or a puck that should be stopped. Like, they give it away quick. And when you're struggling, that's the death blow. You cannot recover. And so I don't know. I see them kind of the last couple of games playing a more winnable brand of hockey, just not enough of it in the course of the game.
Let's pretend they paid the price. Let's excuse the fact that they shouldn't pay the price because it's too exorbitant to acquire a defenseman. But how much better if they just airdrop Jacob Chikrin into this lineup? And they won't. Just go through the exercise. How much better are they? Are they a legitimate winning team if they air one defenseman into the lineup like that?
Well, they're better for sure.
Yeah.
You understand the complication of getting one, though.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's all near impossible. Yes.
Yes. And and you have players that control their own destiny through no move contracts, and so it gets even stickier. And then there aren't many Jacob Chikrins around. I mean, and Bill Armstrong, the GM in Arizona, he's kind of standing on the stump there and saying, "This is it. You either give me this or we'll keep Chikrin." Now, I think that'll change pretty shortly, but it's not going to go through a year like last year. Are they 10% better? Sure. I look at the Canucks though, and I think one player doesn't make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
They're disconnected in different ways. Like last night, that fourth line was terrific. Now, if the big boys had a decent night, not a great night, but a decent night, they probably win last night. If Demko has a night that we're really used to seeing, not the 42 out of 43 shot save Demko night, but just a Demko night, they probably win. Mm-hmm. So each night, it's like when you're a little bit off, it's something a little bit different. And I don't think one guy fixes that. I think this has to be, corny as it might sound, a team solution. That team is better than they're playing. And until they play better for longer, they're going to have these types of results.
They've blown leads in every game, and it may be a mixed bag, but from what you've seen, is it just personnel and not good enough on the back line? Is it too many guys freelancing? Is there not enough structure or systems there? Like, what is it about this team when they have a lead, Ray?
Well, I mean, it would be awesome if you could rock out a top four that you never have to worry about. I mean, that would be amazing. It would be nice you've got a lead and you can put Victor Hedman out there. That would be really nice. But you have the players you have. So yes, some of it I think is probably personnel. More so though, you can think, and I'm just going to go back to my own experience, is that you can think you're doing the right thing all the time, but really you're not. Like right now, I'm doing Tampa at Florida tonight. Tampa's players right now, they've played 73 more games over the last 3 years than anybody else. They probably think, those guys, that they're emotionally connected to each game when they're just not enough. And there's lots of reasons for it, and it's not an excuse. It's just they're not. So I look at the Canucks and I'm like, how do you check better? Well, I go back. Daryl Sutter said this last year, and I thought it was the best. He said, "We don't defend, we check. Check is aggressive. Defend is passive." So when I think whether JT Miller's a good defensive player or not, you know when he's the best defensive player? When he's got the puck on his stick in the offensive zone. And that's hard work. And so if he can find another 5 or 10%, we're not talking, look, 99 point JT Miller is probably the high watermark that you're ever going to see from him. But it's not this. This is not JT Miller. Like the Miller that you expect and not unexpectedly think will play much better, but you need it now. Like Besser's been no factor. Like he's got to be a factor. So you give up a lead. It would be nice if your big boys get you one back, but that hasn't happened enough. And I just use those two as a couple examples. But when I think of Miller was on for, I don't know, the first 8 goals of the season or something, I know I was a way better defensive player when I was in the other end. And so that's how you defend. You defend on your toes. You defend when you check. And then when you come back and you have to play in your zone, it can only be about that. Don't worry about creating offense. That's for later in the year. I'll tell you, they better be sharp because Buffalo can skate.
So then, based on what you just said, how much of that is on Bruce then to figure this out? And I keep going to the Islanders here. I mean, Doug Weight wasn't a terrible coach. They were 80 points. It's bad. It's not horrific, though. It's not like you're a top 5 draft pick sort of bad. Barry Trotz goes in and eventually gets that team to the playoffs and pretty deep. Would a Trotz-like structure work with this team? Does Bruce need to find it within himself to be a defensive coach?
Well, I mean, the answer is, to be a defensive coach, no, because you can't be what you're not. Mm-hmm. Like that's not how Bruce sees the game. That's how Barry Trotz sees the game. And for all his successes, Barry Trotz has won once.
Right.
Right? Like there isn't one way to get this done, but there is a right way for each team. So, Bruce's style, and it's been his style always, has been to attack, it's to score. It's not the most wound down, tight structure. Look, I just saw a quote from Tyler Seguin. He said, first thing he did when Pete DeBoer got in there is they were meeting and getting to know each other. He's like, can we not play that style that Rick Bowness wanted us to play all the time? Right? Like they wanted to play a different style. Well, now if you've got the style, you have to execute it, because if you don't execute it enough, something's going to happen. Like right? You're not going to go through the year 0-3-2 every 5 games. Like that's not happening. Something has to change. The structure itself, I think we talked about this last week. When you defend, you stop. You take your player and you keep him between the net, yourself between the net and him. Don't let him get inside you. That's hard because guys are fast and they're skilled, and it doesn't take much to make a mistake. They just compound things by their own misdeeds, if you will. A turnover 10 feet inside the offensive blue line. Now you got to chase the other team back into your zone. You're not going to defend well because you're not in position. It starts at one end. The turnovers have opened up the ice. Now you chase the ice and you never get there. And when I think of the goals they give up, that's kind of a lot of, like the Philly game, they were chasing the puck all night, even though they had really good moments to it. You chase, you get burned.
Defending's hard. Dave Thomas used to always talk about this. There's a reason why, on the penalty kill, and when you've got the puck, you've got all the energy in the world. When you don't have the puck, chasing is exhausting. Defense is hard. It's overtime, even before they got the extra attacker out there, the team that's got the puck funny. They just look like they've just come over the boards. The other team that came on at the same time, they look like they've been out there for 4 minutes.
I believe Ray is the charter member of this club.
It's way more fun to score. Let somebody else check. That's way hard. And just think though. So think this as well. So say you're committed to checking, and you're in the right place, right? You've got your guy separated from the net by your own body. You've got your stick in good position. You've got help around you. You can still get beat.
Yeah.
Like you can be in the right place doing the right thing most of the time and still get beat. Like that's just the game. The problem is they have allowed too many moments like that to happen in the game. Like they have, as I said at the start, they've played large chunks of the last couple of games in a much better style, a much better form. And then they've given it away. So it doesn't matter that you get to overtime. One of these overtime wins, well, maybe you change your view of things. Maybe you don't, but it's not a disaster, but it's not great. I mean, to come home after 5, it's not great.
You nailed it. They have not played horrific hockey because they've led in all the games. Like it's been soul crushing, but it's not been horrific, and those are two different things. And I think it's
better than
fascinating.
last year, Blake. Like Blake, last year they were hopeless in some of those early games. They haven't been hopeless at all this year.
And so bringing last year into it, Ray, we've got these two arm's length great comparisons of bad starts and where they can go. Last year, Canucks fans all remember last year, different coach at this time, but they've got that PTSD of last year to some degree.
Right.
Bruce Boudreau, on the other hand, has got personal experience of a horrific start of his own in Anaheim. What was it, 2-7-1 or 1-7-2?
1-7, yeah. 1-7-2.
They won the division. So is it impossible? Is the math impossible? No, but we do know from last year, you do not want to extend this much farther.
No, you can't, because you could give the season away in November like they did. Even though they chased the playoff spot, kind of, sort of. It was, I mean, the numbers were not looking very good far before they were officially eliminated last year. The American Thanksgiving cutoff has seemed to be, something that's you've got to mind. Like it becomes something to really be concerned about. I do think that what history of Bruce's 1-7-2 team has nothing to do with this team. That 1-7-2 team had Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry, and there's different players. How that manifests itself to today's game is that with parity, how many games in a row can you win? Everybody's kind of the same. I mean, unless you go play Colorado, like everybody's kind of the same, but they've got a schedule coming up and you think they can probably do some damage. Oh, by the way, their next 2 games are Buffalo, who just swept through Alberta, and Carolina, who's one of the best teams in the league. Like it's never going to get any easier. And so they can't, and we shouldn't look at the schedule and say, oh, here's a soft spot. They could really make up some ground. The only thing that matters should be, how can they play a better form of hockey for longer? And part of that is helping your goalie, who is probably your best player, be your best player. He needs to, Demko can't skate on this because I think he's one of the 5 or 7 best goalies in the league. And he's not played like that. And he's a big part of this team. It would be like if you took Andrei Vasilevsky out of Tampa's lineup and put 15-year pro and Brian Elliott in there, they're not the same team.
Yeah. We talked about this earlier in the week, Ray, and you'll appreciate because you're a baseball fan that, baseball managers now aren't really the strategists anymore. They just execute what's coming on from. Bruce has talked a couple of times this week about gut instincts, and he's made some bold calls here, scratching Conor Garland. Kyle Burrows, we all thought, played a couple of nice nights and then got scratched a couple of times, scratching Nils Höglander last night, which guess you could say worked out because the way that Oman and Joshua played on that fourth line. How far are we from the hockey coach being the baseball manager, where you just manage the personalities and we'll do a lot of the strategy and even the in-game stuff for you? And does Bruce run the risk of being on the wrong side of that if he continues to play gut instincts, particularly bold gut instincts like scratching a guy like Garland?
It'll never happen. It will never happen. And the reason is Dave Roberts, with his 111 win team with the Dodgers, stands in the dugout, and they've got all these color-coded charts behind him. And they say when Blake Price comes up, take Sekeres out of the pen and pitch to him. Oh, yeah, your guy's just thrown 5 shutout innings, but take him out. That's what has to happen. A hockey game is too fluid. The adjustments in game are too varied, too many factors. In baseball, there's a start and a stop. And so you hand the guy the card, and he's not making any gut feels because the card is in his hand.
Like playing blackjack, the blackjack Bible, when it's this, you do this.
Well,
that's a good point, because sometimes you follow that thing and then you go, yeah, but I'm hot. I'm hitting 16 here again, because you're going to outthink the game. I do think the analytics will matter with selection of squad and selection of team for a particular game. But if you go
and matchups too? Matchups too?
See, that's why the matchups, no, because you could say, I want this defenseman to play against that forward. He's got great numbers against him. However, that might work itself out. In game, you can't get that D on there against him all the time. You can't match that line against that forward line all the time. If you want to take tomorrow, you want to get a defenseman out against Quinn or against Tage Thompson. Say you want to do that, and I don't know, pick any defenseman that has a great analytic matchup against Tage Thompson. I don't even know what that could be, but how would you do that in game? So I know this probably goes back to the Garland thing. That, to me, the gut feel was somebody needed a kick in the pants. And that was it. Like, there's analytically, we can look at things, I think, with way more information than we ever could. One thing that will never be touched is there's an emotion to this sport that you can only feel if you're there. And what I mean by that is, you might think as a player you're doing the right things, that you're all in, that your analytics might tell you something is pretty good, and it just might not be what you think. It just might not be. There are guys that have great analytics that shoot the puck from the sideboards all the time, and they have, plus shots for and against numbers all the time, and nothing happens. Conor Garland's paid, I think, $4.5 million. He needs to be not a fringe of the roster. He needs to be in the roster and a difference maker. And if Bruce can't figure out a way to make him that, then you've got something that's at odds. Yeah. Because his salary number is too big to be a part-time contributor. They need the energetic, they need the creative, they need around the front of the net, all the things that made Conor Garland effective in Arizona. Like, they need that stuff from him. And right now, when you're 0-3-2, there's nobody really that skates on this.
Do you sympathize with Bruce's lack of Rathbone usage, seeing as he's basically a raw rookie here, or do you have nothing to lose at this point?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know enough about Jack Rathbone to tell you one way or the other whether he should be in the lineup. I got a text today from Frankie Corrado. And Frankie's doing TV in Toronto and, just starting his career. It looks like his hockey playing days are over. I remember a year where we spilt so much air, and
not us.
Who are you talking
about? And then it went to Toronto, and I'm like, oh my God, we're talking about poor Frankie Corrado every day. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I could only think of that. I thought of that when I saw the text, and then I knew we were talking. I thought of Rathbone, and I'm like, man, we talk a lot about a kid that hasn't played, but should he play? Maybe he should. I don't know enough to say that player should come out. Who would you take out?
Well,
maybe Stillman. Yeah, Stillman at this point. I mean, Stillman left last night, so.
Right. I mean, he can move the puck. He can skate. I understand all that, but I don't know enough to say he should be in or I'm not comfortable enough to say he should be in ahead of that player.
The argument I would give, Ray, and people will say, well, he's not exactly Pronger. You're not getting a puck, a stout defender and putting. And I go back to the JT Miller defense argument. Have the puck. That would be my rationale for it. Is if he's out there, maybe you've got the puck on a Canuck player's stick a little bit more often, and that's how you play defense. That would be my argument.
That's going to be the way he's going to have to play it because at his size. He's not the stout defender. To my example of you can be in the right place, doing the right thing, and you might just get overpowered. Mm-hmm. And that happens in Colorado with Sam Girard a little bit. He's a terrific player, man. He's got amazing analytics too, but coaches are worried that a big guy's going to go over top of him in front of the net. And and he can't make himself bigger. And I sympathize with the little guys. I want them all in there. So it's a tough one though. But it is the problem. Is the problem that Rathbone's not in? Is the problem that Rathbone can help the team be better, or is he just different? And again, I don't know that.
Yeah, not the solution to this problem. Yeah.
All I know is you don't lose 23-year-old right shot defensemen on waivers when you can just put Chris Higgins on IR at the end of
that was
training
our
camp.
argument for Toronto
my
back
grave
in
believing
Jesus,
that was badass.
How do you remember that?
Well, as you say, Ray, we did spend some time talking about it. For some reason, it's permanently seared into the brain. We had some fun with Dregs on Wednesday. We loved the Bruce Arthur Torstar feature story on you, including the photo, which looked like your backyard. All that was missing was the jeans barefoot look on the photo. But I wanted to put Blake on errors and omissions yesterday, but he said it came from the Arthur column. How many years broadcasting? How many years doing color?
I started in 2002. In October of 2002, I started on the air at ESPN in 97.
You did color starting in 02, really? Huh?
Yeah, I started the Craig Simpson went to coach the Oilers. He left the Oilers broadcast. I auditioned in the. You remember where the TV trucks were parked at Northlands Coliseum?
Uh-huh.
Underneath, and it was kind of like a big work warehouse there. They had a little thing set up there, and Kevin Quinn and I did an audition, and they did a couple other people. I don't know who they were, and I got a call, and I took the job. And so I literally retired in May, and I started in October, had no idea what I was doing. And the first day they say to us, okay, what do you want to do for the Open? And I'm like, well, what's that? And they said, well, that's before the game where we tee up the game. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Do I come up with that? I had no idea. None, zero. Mm-hmm. So that's where it started, 02.
Wonderful stuff, and we're glad to have you. Enjoy Florida. I hope you love those palm trees and hockey stick reverse retro jersey.
I don't mind them. My two favorites, I will say, are LA and San Jose.
Love LA. Love LA.
San Jose, too.
San Jose
Golden
as well.
Seals. Yeah.
San Jose.
I mean, they got a chance. The Seals got a chance to win a game finally.
Let's see them wear the white skates, though. I'll be duly impressed if they go white skates. Yeah. Thanks, Ray. Have a good weekend. We'll catch up next Friday.
Yeah, thanks. You guys, too.